Good morning and welcome. I want to welcome everyone to the Advisory Committee on Before and After School Programs on behalf of the California Department of Education and the Governor's Office. We're so glad that you're here with us. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Sandy McBrayer. I'm in Southern California at the Children's Initiative. I'm going to ask members to introduce themselves. I'm going to start on my left with Tia.
Tia Dwyer, Urban Before and After School Programs.
Thank you.
Julie Brooks, Large Elementary Programs.
Chris Meza, representing Urban Programs.
Jennifer Cisneros, High School Programs.
Brad Lupian, Large Middle School.
Cindy Haas, Rural.
Good morning, Diane Ortiz, Small Middle School.
Olivia, can you introduce yourself?
Good morning, Olivia Kernan, Rural Schools.
Thank you. Tiffany, if you can introduce yourself. Are you with us, Tiffany? Unfortunately, Tiffany had a family emergency, so she's trying to zoom in. So we'll give her a few minutes. If we can have our director, Michael.
Good morning, everyone. Michael Funk, Director of the Expanded Learning Division.
Mr. Brady.
Good morning, everyone. Joshua Brady, one of the education administrators in the Expanded Learning Division.
Thank you. And Fred. I don't think you turned your mic on, Fred. There you go.
Fred Buggs, Region 9 Consultant.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here today. If we can start with the review of the meeting materials, Fred.
Yes. On your left-hand side, you'll find your agenda for today's meeting. On your right-hand side, we have our city updates, as well as the draft minutes from the August meeting. Thank you, Sandy.
Everyone have what Fred just described in their packets to make sure because we're going to go over these documents as we talk. Thank you very much, Fred. If we can start, if the minutes are going to be the first thing that we're going to review and approve. So if you can take a minute, I know we sent these out late last week for your review. We are continuous improvement. I think you got them on Friday. We're going to commit next time to Thursday, so you'll have a little bit more time than the weekend. But we were trying to get all the other documents in one packet to get out to you, so you didn't get one thing at a time. But if you can take a moment to review the minutes and let us know if there's any corrections, changes. So we're looking for a motion for approval.
A motion.
Thank you very much. We have a motion from Chris. Do we have a second? We have a second from Brad. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? Okay, thank you very much. The minutes approved with the majority of the members. So as you know, there has not been new after-school legislation in the last session, but there are a couple pieces of legislation that I'd like to call your attention to as we move forward. And while these are directed to the school site, they're applicable to the expanded learning site also. And the first one is Senate Bill 98, which was the Perez bill. And this is really important because it's now requiring a comprehensive school safety plan to be reviewed and updated, but no later than March 1st of 2026. And part of this bill is to make sure that we notify parents, guardians, teachers, administrators, when the school, do you need some water, Fred? I have one right here. Sorry. Can't die on my watch. Can't choke on my watch. But it requires them to confirm the presence of immigration enforcement when it's on a school site. So it's important for all staff to know about these school safety plans. And it also has some additional requirements for chartering authority to deny a charter petition that does not include a safety plan in its provisions. And that takes effect January 1 of 2031. But it's really important for us to make sure we know what our school safety plans are and that we're communicating that to all staff who are on campus. And that could be a provider, it could be a vendor or a contractor, but everyone needs to know the same information. The other bill that passed is Assembly Bill 49. And this actually was an urgency bill, so it took effect on September 20th. And it actually prohibits LEA officials and employees from allowing officers or employees of an agency conducting an immigration enforcement to enter a non-public area of the school site without a valid warrant. It goes on to talk about prohibiting LEAs and its personnel from disclosing or providing in writing, verbally or in any manner, the education records and information about a pupil, their family, any employee without a valid warrant, judicial subpoena, or court order. So it's putting some boundaries in place of how information can be shared with immigration officials. And this was an urgency bill, so it's already in effect. But again, it's important for your school site leads to know this. You know, I can envision I'm on a school campus in the expanded learning, and I've got some young staff, and they're just sharing information like, oh yeah, that's Joe, and he does this. It's like, whoa, hang on, back up. So we have to be sure that all of the people who are on our campus have the same information and the same knowledge. I know that CDE has published a toolkit called Our Schools Resources for Including Immigrant Families. So if you haven't had a chance to download that and review it, I think that's also really important to hand out to staff. And I'm really emphasizing the whole line of staff, right? From our site supervisors to our line staff to our contractors and vendors, so that everyone's on the same page to make sure that our kids are safe. So those are the bills that I think apply to us. While they were directed directly to a school site and an LEA, we're all part of that family. So I think it's important that we know what's happening legislatively. Any questions on those two bills? Or on the resource? It is available on the CDE website, so please access that to be able to see it. Hearing none, I'm going to turn this over to Tiffany. I just want to see if you're with us yet. Okay, we're going to move forward. Is that Jeff talking?
Yeah, she's trying to join Zoom as updated.
Oh, okay, her Zoom is updating. Doesn't that always work that way? You have like 2 minutes to get on a meeting and then it says, need to update, give me 10. It drives me nuts. Can it just do it in the background? So I'm going to turn it over to Michael Funk to begin our CDE update. And you have a ton of handouts from the Department of Ed, so we're going to follow along.
Michael, if I could start real quick just to go over the EXOD announcements and updates, and I'll pass it to you. I do want to preface by saying that the content is not a lot because we have to read the slides. We're trying to make this as accessible as possible. So we will be reading the slides for the public. And also, so when this is posted on our website, you'll see that the content doesn't go all the way. We're trying to really closed captioning for the public. And so we're learning as we go from our colleagues at TSD who have been a great support to us. So the EXOD announcements and updates, Michael will talk about Strategic Plan 3.0. He'll provide some updates there. ACES and 21st CCLC updates, unspent funds for ACES and 21st CCLC. We will go over a payment process timeline, and then we will have some updates on our STEAM hubs. We have Dr. Rosalind Clark and Chris Brazil here that will provide some updates on that. So I will pass it back to Michael to talk about Strategic Plan 3.0.
So I'm just reading this. That's what I'm understanding?
You can read it and then you can provide some additional information afterwards.
So the first meeting of the Ecosystem Advisory Team convening number 1 was held on October 16th, 2025. This nearly year-long effort recognizes that expanded learning is an essential but still only one part of an ecosystem that can and should support our students, families, and communities. This is co-led by CDE and the California After School Network. I'm sure that many of you have a touch point with this planning process. It is the extension of going back to 2012, 2013, when we did Strategic Plan 1.0. And then just before COVID, strategic plan 2.0, and then COVID kicked in and changed a lot of things. But Jeff Davis will be doing his report from the California After School Network. And I just want to highlight that while so much has changed since Strategic Plan 2.0 with the addition of $4.5 billion into the system, as well as many other factors, the opportunities have emerged exponentially to partner with other segments of the family and youth development supporting ecosystem of other industries or other sectors around the state. And so that is an emphasis, and we can talk about more about that in the dialogue if you have questions. And I'll turn it, I think, to Josh for 21st Century ACES.
Thank you, Michael. So 21st Century Community Learning Centers update. The one-time funding request for applications generated 320 applications requesting $364,250,000 in funding. And we have approximately 130 million available. We did mention, we thought we had 141 at one time. Being going back and forth with our colleagues in fiscal, and so it's close to now about 130 million. Again, we're still having dialogues, but as of right now, that's the number that we're going on. It's about $130 million available. The team is in the process of screening all of these, and the next step would be our funding determination. It was mentioned previously too that one site could get multiple awards. That is not the case. An e-blast was recently sent out on that. It was also mentioned that we would prioritize 21st Century sites for those sites where multiple agencies applied for the same site. We are having internal conversations about that, and hopefully a decision will be made. So I'm not sure if we're going to be prioritizing 21st Century sites or if we're going to have to contact each of those that it impacts and have them make a decision where they want that application to be. So that's the update for 21st Century Community Learning Centers, and see if there's any questions on that.
Josh, if you could, how are you going to rank the applications to choose eligible or to determine funding?
This is just like ACES. We're going to go from the highest free and reduced price meal percentage to the lowest until we run out of money.
Brad?
Thank you, Josh. My question is around the 364 million. Is that the number after people were told that they couldn't apply twice if they had a dual funded location, or is the 364 million going to be reduced because a number of those have been told, hey, you can't apply for 150 twice?
Yeah, so this is the total amount in general. I will say, as far as the dual funded sites go, two situations. One agency has both an ACES and 21st Century grant, and they applied for twice for that same site. Those are pretty easy because it's just one site. The one that gets complicated is when multiple agencies apply for the same site. So you could have a community-based organization, they have 21st Century, and LEA, ACES, they both applied for the same site. However, for those situations, there's only 46 situations like that. So yes, Brad, the total would probably go down a little bit, but it wouldn't go down that much.
Thank you.
Julie?
Thank you. Thanks, Josh. Really appreciate it. Just also a question around how you'll run down the list. If everyone applies for the maximum, does that just mean less schools get it, or will you look at kind of a intermediate question to make sure that more schools receive some funding?
No, it's however the free and reduced price meals line up going from highest to lowest, it will be ranked by site. So again, if one application has 10 sites, maybe 5 of them get funded. It really just depends on the free and reduced price meal percentages, highest to lowest.
I think my question was actually, sorry, it wasn't clear. My question was actually around the amount, right? If everyone requests 150, does that just mean that that's what will be awarded? Even though that means that far less schools could see some of this. So just wondering if you would have any discretion or changes to
No.
those amounts.
We're not changing anyone's amounts, don't, at all. I mean, whatever people requested, that's what we will honor. And so that's the way it will work.
I do think, Julie, that's an important lesson for the future. That maybe in the future, we can have a discussion as an advisory. Do we want to offer guidance to the department that while 150 was the max amount, if we have 3 times the number of applicants, do we want to lower the, I mean, I know we can't do it for this process. It's already out, it's already public, it's already been, done, but it's a really good point to make, to say, because personally, I would have said, hey, let's drop it to 100, which means we could go to another 200 or 300 schools, right? But I think that's an important thing for us to just make note of in the future, that we have to remember, like, hey, remember what happened last time when we had less schools but more money? Because we're already in November, about to hit December pretty quick. And by this process, when this goes through, schools have until September 30th of 2026. And that's a very short time frame. So I think that's a good point, and that if this comes up in the future, we need to make sure that we kind of come as an advisory to what is our feelings. Do we want breadth, or depth? And do we want both? So very good point. Brad and then Diane.
The question is based on taking 364 million, dividing it by the 320 applications. The average application's over $1 million, which means an application's multiple schools. It's not one school. Based on that math, will we be using the north, central, south, urban, rural buckets to make sure distribution is even or thought about across the state?
No, for this one, the RFA, again, this was a last minute RFA put together very, very quickly. And so this is basically even a simpler RFA than ACES. And so we're not doing geographic distribution for this. We're just doing straight highest FRPM to lowest, just like ACES. So there is no geographic distribution for this one.
Thanks for clarifying.
Diane?
Yeah, thank you for raising that question. I think that would be an area that we would want to provide some guidance on as well, considering. My question is just for clarification. So with the highest free and reduced lunch rate, you're saying priority sites are that, and also 21st century, then ACES sites? Is that correct?
No.
Just overall free reduced lunch as a priority.
So 21st century cohorts 13, 14, 15 were eligible, along with existing ACES grantees. So we're based on all of that, we're going highest FRPM to lowest FRPM. And however that shakes out, that's how it shakes out based on the available funding. So we're not prioritizing 21st over ACES, ACES over 21st. What I mentioned before was the dual funded sites where both multiple agencies applied. That's something that we're still having internal conversations of how to resolve that. So we should know in the next day or two how we're going to resolve that. And for those that have that situation, they will be contacted one way or another.
Michael, you had a comment? Sorry.
Thank you, Sandy. I just wanted to provide a little bit of context for this one-time funding. Going back to ESSER 3, the COVID stimulus funding, which had a 1% set aside for summer programs, we had about $150 million, not that much different than this amount, to put out to the field in an RFA for people to apply for additional summer funding. It took us 3 rounds to get the money out the door because people didn't apply for it. I think the first RFA, I'm forgetting the exact amount, but it was less than half of the money of the 150 million was requested in applications. So we had to put out an additional RFA and still didn't get the funding out and had to put out a renewal application for the first round of funding before we actually got the money out. So when we designed this, quite frankly, I was shocked when I saw this amount of money coming in for applications based on the last circumstance with the ESSER 3 summer. So I just wanted to provide that for some context.
Thank you, Michael. Josh, do you have a timeline on us, a timeline for us? I apologize of when you're laughing. I like your grin, but again, a
Hey,
guesstimate timeline, a crystal ball
I
timeline.
I think that's probably one of the frequently asked questions I get. As soon as possible. I mean, honestly, we know this is high priority, one-time funding. So again, can't give a specific date, but I mean, the ITA has basically been completed, the intent to award. It's just, we just need a decision on these dual funded sites. And then again, the team is working on putting the funding packet together to route through CDE and branch. And so again, the team is working every day. We're doing something. Screening has completed and all that stuff. So hopefully.
Thank you. Julie, you have another question?
You. Just regarding the dual funded sites, can I just ask a point of clarification? Is the resolution around which party, if there's a double application, receives the funding, or whether you would award both and then double fund a single site? Can I just understand that?
We are not double funding a single site.
Great. Thank you for that clarification.
The issue is around if two separate agencies applied for the same site. We're working on a resolution on how we will deal with that. And I don't have an answer for you right now, but for those that are impacted, they will be contacted in some way to let them know.
Well, I was hoping it was the answer, and I appreciate it.
What our decision is.
So if we can, thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. I just like to, so, in San Diego, we've been having a team to try to talk about, how do we spend this money in the best way possible? And one of the things that we thought of doing, and Brad actually said there was a precedent to this, was identifying some very consistent, reliable contractors and vendors who provided quality service and having the county office hold those contracts, so that we could say to all the sites in our consortium, you can have 20 hours of X, you can have 21 hours of science, you can have 21, and they get to pick. So they don't have to go through that whole contracting process at the LEA level, which could take quite a while. But if the county office holds it, this allows them to kind of get a menu of like, oh, we would love this science program. Wow, we always wanted this math program. The other thing we're trying to do is identify all the field trip opportunities. What do they cost per student? What would a bus cost for that trip? Because there's so many that have just been off the table because they just couldn't afford them. And so instead of, again, putting it on the LEA to say, go research this quickly, we're going to give them the list. We're going to say, here's the wild animal park, here's Lion Kingdom, here's the aquarium, here's what it costs per student, here's the timeline to schedule this. So our consortium is trying to do all that legwork on behalf of the districts, because we really don't want to come May and June and they go, we haven't spent it all. We want to say this is icing. It's one-time icing on a cake. So how do we look at what's available? What's our menu of options that we can spend this money on that could be an awesome 7 months for our young people? And so it's just one of the suggestions I wanted to offer up, because we're trying to do that locally to get ahead of the game. Because I know for a lot of districts, they're going to struggle because they have ELOP and they had, yes, they applied, but that's a lot of money for a very short time. So as much as we as an advisory can offer guidance and assistance to our districts of some ideas that they can get that out quickly, I know so many sites who have wanted to do field trips for so long and could never afford them or the bus that goes with it, that it's just been cost prohibitive. So how do we kind of give them that information and not just go to the same places that they go to, but really research those other unique opportunities to take kids to places they've never knew existed. So that's what we're doing locally. And so we just want to kind of give you some ideas of what can happen with these dollars if we plan now. We don't wait until January or another time when, okay, now we've got the intent to award, let's pull a team together. We're pulling a team together right after Thanksgiving because we want to get ahead of the game so we know what we want to do. So other ideas or suggestions? Thank you, Josh. You're on next, I
Thank
think,
you.
for the ACES.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Next, ACES. ACES Universal 2025 22nd round RFA was released November 3rd, 2025, with an application due date of December 3rd, 2025. Approximately $33 million is available. ACES Renewal E-Blast was sent on November 13th, 2025, and ACES Universal 26 and 27 will be posted sometime in January of 2026. I think you can sense we are our renewal season, lots of things happening, but I'll pause there to see if there's any questions.
Brad? Oh, sorry, Olivia.
Um,
Does she have?
Hi, yes, Josh. Do you have an estimate about how much will be available for that RFA for the 26-27 year for ACES? Or is that to be determined?
At this time, we don't have any idea how much is available for ACES 26-27 because that amount is based on reductions, and the reductions will not occur until after the calendar year 25 is over. And so once we know, we may know, I'm not sure if we'll even know at the next meeting in January, because the attendance is usually due January 31st, and reductions will probably start after that. So it really depends. Reductions in closed schools.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Olivia. Brad?
Yeah, looking for a little guidance. This was a question that came from the field down in Southern California. With the cycle B happening right after the round 2 application, we're hearing people say that they think that the best strategy is going to be to use round 2 to get any ACES grant that's not a full grant up to full, even if they're a cycle B group. So full elementary school, 83.3 students, but they're being funded for 60, and they're saying, I'm going to go after round 2 money to get me up to a full 83, so that when the cycle B application comes out and is due in January, that you're applying for a renewal on a full 83 students. But I know that there's also the opportunity within cycle B to go for not just a renewal of 60, but all the way up to the full 83. Again, excuse my example using an elementary school, but for context, what is the best practice for that?
So the best practice is there's 2 separately, completely different processes. If you are interested in increased funding, you need to apply for ACES Universal second round. The ACES renewal process has no impact on this process. So if you are renewing in cycle B, you're renewing no matter what, right? If you were to get an increase in funding or add a new site, that's not going to have any impact. If you add any new sites, they will just become part of your existing renewal cycle, wherever that falls. But again, 2 separately, completely different processes. And so hopefully that clarifies it, Brad.
It absolutely does. Thank you.
Anyone else with questions on the ACES grant updates? Thank you, Josh.
Right. One second. I'm going to go off camera, and I am going to pass it to Emily and Kindred, our 2 staff service manager ones, to talk about the payment process timeline.
Yes.
Sandy, before we pass it to Emily and Kindred, I just want to, for those that can't see the gallery here, acknowledge that we've got a gallery full of expanded learning division staff. And so you can see people that are working that the advisory committee doesn't often see. And very proud to have Kindred and Emily here as staff service managers. One, they oversee all the analysts in the office. They actually run the machine of all the grant funding, all the fiscal things. It's really the machine of the heart and soul of what makes this division work. And when this first advisory committee first started, Sandy, you'd remember back in 2006.
I was very young.
Yeah, I was too. I had hair, and I think I had Brad's seat at that point for. This gallery would be full, every chair taken. But none of the chairs were taken by the division staff because they weren't allowed to come. So very glad to have the staff here representing and presenting, and just want to acknowledge their work, and they're the heart and soul of what we do, and you don't often get to see them. So they're here. So Emily and Kindred, take it away.
Emily and Kindred, can I say that you don't see this, but there are, Michael, more than 200 people online with us this morning. So our gallery would be overflowing, and we're excited that we can do this online, but there's quite a few people listening in. Welcome, we're glad you're here.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, so we can get started on the payment process timeline. So the first step is that we'll pull a grants management report to determine who qualifies for payment and how much to be paid with a 1 week turnaround. Then our analysts for our 21st and access grants and our ACES analysts will prepare the AO 401 and payment schedule. The AO 401 is our payment request form, with this step taking another week turnaround time. And then they'll send this payment to the managers for review, and then the division director will sign it if acceptable, which is a 2 business day turnaround. And then after we get it back from the division director, we'll send the signed AO 401 and payment to the accounting team, which is a 2 business day turnaround. The accounting team will review it, process the payment, and then they'll send it off to the state controller's office, which is a 1 to 2 week turnaround. And then from the state controller's office, they'll send the payment to the county treasurer's office that the LEA operates within. The non-LEAs that bypass the treasurer's office and go directly to the non-LEAs, which is a 3 to 4 weeks turnaround. Then the county treasurer will distribute the payments to the grantees.
Questions?
Any questions on the payment process timeline?
Tia, please.
I don't have a question, but I do want to acknowledge the great work that went into providing this back to us, and also the detail. It's really helpful to kind of see if I, just kind of swag. It's around 8 weeks just internally from your department, which is helpful when you're on the, on the receiving end or you're waiting for your payment. This is really helpful information to kind of what needs to happen and all the pieces and people that need to participate in that. If it were to take longer than that for some odd reason, a delay or something, is typically the LEA informed ahead of time, or do you kind of have to wait until the timeline goes by, and then how does that kind of work?
This is Emily Romine, one of the managers. As far as reaching out to the LEA to notify something is taking longer, the only point we could do that is about when the accounting team reviews and process the payment. Once it goes to the state controller's office, we can't see where the payments go. We do follow our ACES 21st and assets payment schedule posted on our website. So we're running this cycle many times a year. So if whatever reason a deliverable is not met, a reporting requirement, we'll follow up another payment cycle to see if any grantees that were not caught in the last batch payment will be caught in the next batch payment. So these cycles are constantly going. Our payment processes are constantly going. So if anything is not caught in the first round, it'd be probably caught in another few weeks.
Thank you.
Other questions for Emily and Kendra? Thank you very much. This is very helpful, and it's helpful for us to be able to tell the LEAs what the process is, because, you know, oftentimes when you're in a community, it goes into a black hole and you don't know that there's an entire very systematic process to go from A to B to C. And I think this is really clear. I know I'll be sharing this in San Diego to our district contact meeting. So all of our districts will be able to see this, which they can then also give it to their business unit, who can then also better understand the process, that it's just not sitting in one place. It's literally going from place to place. Diane, you had a question?
It's a little bit of a question, but one, I just want to say that the turnaround time is really helpful, and your attention to that is really great, because CBOs sometimes will have lag payments or reimbursements when districts, you know, experience any of that short timing and grant payments. And I was just curious, is there any guidance related to that about CBO reimbursement timelines, or when that has to happen from an LEA?
There's not.
Not?
No, that is a local process between the LEA, and I can tell you from having operated a community-based organization and contracting with 2 different districts, the process was dramatically different between the 2 districts, and the timeline, it wasn't unusual sometimes for us to not have a payment until the spring. So some of you operate with many different districts, and you could speak to that as well, but that's there's nothing from CDE that prescribes a process.
Yeah, I thought I had seen legislation go out at the state level regarding that, but I'll have to do a little bit of research to see if that, not necessarily just for CDE, but just for payments to CBOs in general, because of the ripple effect of delayed payments.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. Jennifer?
I would just advise you check whatever LEAs you're working with, their board policies and their administrative regulations, because they do have them documented somewhere.
Other questions? Thank you very much. Thank you for putting that information together for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. The next slide is the unspent funds slide, and I believe Emily and Kendra will take this, but in the EXLD updates that the board members received, it has it broken down by region. And the reason why we did not put that in this slide is because we would have to read every single number that's in that table. So the full unspent funds document broken down by region will be posted to our the advisory meeting website after this is over. But take it away, Emily and Kindred, whoever's going to talk about this.
Thanks, Joshua. So for a little bit of context, the unspent funds is for performance period 2024 to 25. ACES had just quarters 1 through 4, whereas the 21st and assets had a quarter 5. And so the performance period went until September 30th, 2025. ACES unspent balance for regions 1 through 11 is $27,936,998.73. The 21st CCLC elementary middle programs had an unspent balance of $9,492,837.08. And our high school assets program had $4,601,648.51 unspent as of quarter 5.
Questions?
Yeah, I'm just curious, when we're talking about programs applying for new funding or funding in the future, for any of these programs that aren't spending money, what's the protocol, or what harm could come to those programs that aren't spending the money, depending on the funding? I'm just curious.
So right now, CDE does bill back for any sites that report 0 attendance. But as far as unspent funds, CDE is looking at taking away funding from sites that report $0, or not sites, grants themselves that report $0 across the whole fiscal year. But that is with legal right now.
But it is, I mean, I guess if you're not spending the money, you're not serving the students, so you wouldn't be meeting your attendance requirements, and then there'd be a natural progression of reductions. Is how I would view this, that you're not serving kids, you're not meeting your goals, and then there'd be reductions. Michael, were you going to comment?
I am going to comment. Just recently, we've had a meeting with the entire system of support for expanded learning. And you may or may not know that there has been a process that previously was called critical technical assistance. So in our system of support in each geographic region, the county office and CDE staff are required to provide 3 levels of support to grantees. Universal support, which is something that is available to everyone, general support, information, a meeting of all grantees, et cetera. Targeted support, which may be, well, there are some sites that are trying to do attendance recovery, and those sites need extra support for attendance recovery, so that's targeted. Critical is when we use data or anecdotal information to identify an LEA or a community-based organization that is underperforming. We're now calling this critical support, and the regional team is now charged with developing an individualized plan for each LEA or community-based organization that is on the critical support list, and provide specifically critical support to help that site, LEA or CBO, to improve. One of the things we're looking at is underspending of the grant amount and identifying that early. So we're not finding that out like at the end of the year, we discover that this particular LEA or community-based organization has only spent 50% of their funding. We're going to identify that earlier in the process and then send support to help them identify how they can do better.
Thank you. I apologize that I don't know these off the top of my head, but Josh, could you run down the regions? What area is Region 1?
Region 1 is Region 1 is Northern California, but more of the left-hand side of the state. And I believe Region 2 is still also Northern California, but it's also kind of like the right-hand side of the state.
And 3? I'm going to test his knowledge here.
Oh, great. 3 is the greater Sacramento area and kind of beyond.
4?
4 is the Bay Area. Region 5 is Monterey kind of area and some parts of the Bay, I believe. Region 6 is San Joaquin, Stanislaus area. Region 7 is Fresno, Tulare, and Merced. Region 8 is Ventura, Kern County, I believe San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara. 9, San Diego, Orange, and Imperial. 10, San Bernardino, Riverside. And 11 is Los Angeles. Thanks, Sandy, for putting me on the spot like that. I can't believe I got it.
You passed it. It was awesome. We're very excited. You got 11 out of 11. That's an A. Sorry,
Thank you.
Jennifer, please, your question.
I'm just curious, is this like typical unspent funds year over year? Like, is this an increase? Like, what are kind of the patterns of money that's going back into the system? And then also, have we noticed any patterns since coming out of COVID? ELOP now entering the system? Like, has there been any type of analysis around how all of that is impacting ACES 21st century and assets?
I can't speak to the trend of unspent balances over the past few years, but as far as attendance over the last few years, we've had 5 years where we suspended the grant reduction process. And so there were several sites that would report 0 or less than their target across the years, and we were not billing back for those at all. So I think this is probably the first year where programs are running back to normal and where we could probably go back to a trend of pre-COVID times. But if the committee would like to see balances across several years, we can do that for next time.
Okay, so Chris, you want to speak up?
Yeah, I'd like the motion to get that information just to see over the time.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposition?
Aye.
Abstentions. Okay, so do we have a time frame you're asking for, Chris? Are you asking for a 3-year?
I think 3 years would be helpful. Anybody else?
I'd actually, yeah, I was actually going to say, I think we should maybe go back to the year before COVID and see how it varies, how it changes over time.
Can I second that? I was thinking back to 2019.
Thank you, Tiffany, for joining us. We're glad you got on. And so we're looking
Me
back to
too.
2019.
Are we looking for 3 years prior to that because of the suspensions that have been in the intermediate?
Brad, and then Jennifer?
I know a motion was made and seconded, so editing the motion, there's rules around it, but I would love to see 3 years before there was attendance relief. So looking at 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, and then the past 3 years. So 22, 23, 3, 4, 4, 5. So we can see trends prior to ELOP and attendance relief, and then trends since the relief.
Let me just clarify that. We're going to suspend the motion for a moment. And Brad, you're asking for an amendment that says 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20. And then you said 22.
22, 23, 23, 24, and what we have here, which is 24, 25. So you can see comp trends pre and post attendance relief.
Emily, does that make sense?
Yep, and I wrote that down. And my colleague Chris Brazil did bring up another point that in 21, 22, the ACES 21st in assets rate did increase from 888 to 1018 for ACES, 750 and 10 from those. So that may contribute to some of the balances as well. But I will get this data.
Okay, Diane?
Yeah, not to totally complicate everything, but it would be great to see what chronic absenteeism looked like over that time frame too, in those areas. And I don't know if, because you're doing it by region, so I don't know how helpful that's going to be, because we're doing this by region. Is that correct? The time trend, I mean, the money trend, is it by region?
Yes.
That's a lot of data, yeah. Yeah. Okay, never mind.
Okay. So we're good with the 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, and then jumping to 22, 23, and 23, 24. Okay. So we're going to make a motion to approve that amendment if you're comfortable, Chris.
Yeah, all motion.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second.
I have a second with Jennifer. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Tiffany, did you say aye?
Yes.
Thank you. All those opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was great information. Josh, do you have other information for us?
No, but at this time, we are going to have a special EXLD presentation by Dr. Rosalind Clark and Chris Brazil. And so as they make their way up, I'm going to stop sharing and then put their slide deck up. Hey, it's great to see everyone now that I am not sharing anymore. So, all right, 1 second, Chris and Rosalind.
Before we can go, I'm sorry, I apologize, Chris and Rosalind. Brad, you had another question?
Apologies for the delay. Want to go, before we jump to bullet 6, agenda item 6, wanted to go back to the reports, the EXLD announcements, bullet 2, 21st century. I had a follow-up question on that. Is that appropriate for me to ask before we move on?
Go ahead.
Cool. So I foresee a problem. I didn't know if this was an emerging issue or a clarifying question, so I'm putting it here. When the field gets FPM reviews in the future and you have this supplemental funds for 150 with a 1-question narrative for how you're going to spend that money, and it's at a site that's got a program plan for either ACES or 21st century, and that site is being reviewed for compliance with the plan that you created, will those 2 plans be looked at independently? Or so let me give an example. You've got a school that's got a full 21st century grant, and they've got a narrative for that grant. We look at the narrative and we try and make sure that the program being delivered matches that narrative. Now this school gets a $150,000 supplemental grant, and the reviewer comes out and takes a look. Will they read that supplemental narrative, that 1-question narrative? How do you plan to use the 150,000? And say, you're following basically what you said you were going to do, or do they look at both of those narratives and say you're spending the money within the context of either or both of those? Like, does it get audited and reviewed totally separately, the 150,000 or 100 or 50? Or does it get put together in one review, or will the supplemental not be reviewed?
So per the RFA, the supplemental funds will be subject to audit and or FPM. However, the program plan is based on the entire program. It's not specific to a site. So the program plans, when I was a reviewer, I did look at the program plan, but the program plan is actually not mentioned in the FPM guide. It's all the other components and the requirements. So the program plan does help the reviewer understand what their program is all about. So it will be looked at during FPM, Brad, but I wouldn't be too concerned about the narrative review. It's more of how did you spend the funding? If they're pulling general ledgers and things like that, and you know, meeting 8515, supplement not to plant, those type of things. But if there is something in the narrative that is a concern, you know, usually that would happen prior to us even funding you. An example would be if someone put an out of the country field trip in their supplemental narrative. Well, we'd probably kick that back and say, you need to revise, because we're not approving specific expenditures in the narrative. The narrative is just a roadmap of how you plan to enhance or expand your existing programming. So hopefully that helps.
Josh, I think I've never done an FPM, but I think a shorter way of saying what you just said is the reviewer does not read the narrative of the program plan and then check the program to see if all the components of the program are being implemented. That's not part of the review. So the FPM is looking at the things that Josh mentioned, how the money's being spent, 8515, staff ratios, staff qualifications, those types of things. But the program, no one's been given a finding because you didn't do this activity that you mentioned you were going to do in your program plan.
Let me be more explicit, because I think this is going to help the field a lot as we're going through this. So there was a pretty quick turnaround to turn in the RFA for the supplemental, and you fill it out and you say, we're going to use this money to do a bunch of field trips and layer on a bunch of enrichment classes. And then you get the funding and you say, we're not going to do those field trips and add those enrichment classes. We see an emergent need for us to have more one-on-one special education instructors. So we're shifting our focus after we've been funded. Is that okay?
I would think if that's the case, then if we're funded, you could reach out to us similar to like you would with your regular program plan, that you would like to change something. That way we have it for the file, right? So even with your regular program plan for ACES and 21st century, if there's something in there that you wanted to add, which does happen from time to time, you should reach out to your education programs consultant and say, hey, we'd like to add this to our program plan or change this. And the consultant will review it and approve it and add it to the file. So if something is changing drastically, you should follow the same process.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for clarifying.
Great.
Thank you, Brad. And we're going to move forward with our presentation. Thank you.
Without further ado, Kristen Roslin. Oops, hold on. Are you guys seeing this? Hold on. Thought I had it up. Are you seeing it?
Yes, but you need
Yes.
to do full screen, please.
Yeah, it's not in presentation mode.
All right, hold on. Yeah, I'm having it. 1 second. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, take it away.
That's good enough. Thank you, Josh. Again, good morning. My name is Dr. Rosalind Clark. I'm here with my colleague, Chris Brazil, and we are just going to give you an update on the STEAM hubs and just give you a little bit of background, some accomplishments, and what's going on in the future. And we're excited really about STEAM Hub. You know, Chris's background in life sciences and my previous background as a STEM director, we really enjoy working with our STEAM hubs throughout the state.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us. When Fred asked if we wanted to talk about STEAM, we jumped at the chance. We've never been up in front of you guys before. So just a little bit of background. First of all, I'll tell you, we broke all of the Zoom PowerPoint rules today. We have lots of words and lots of pictures. So I do apologize for those of you out in the sphere out there. So the STEAM Hub initiative began as a privately funded program back in 2012. That program was getting ready to sunset. They were pulling the funding, and luckily, Michael Funk, sitting right here next to us, went to, can I say Ron Ottinger's name, and STEM Next and said, do not let this go. We will manage this within the department. It's too important to just let go. So the CD took over the operations in 2014, 2015, with 5 hubs throughout the state, kind of trying to cover the entire state. And since 2015, we have grown that in several steps, but we now have 17 hubs throughout the 11 regions here in California, supporting our almost 7 million students in the state.
All right, and what we really try to do, you know, I know Chris has been here since the inception. The 2 years that I have come aboard, I've really seen the hubs come together and really work towards the vision, which is, you know, really inspiring staff to lead innovative and authentic STEAM learning that ignites students' imagination and passion to decode challenges and thrive. And so a purpose, again, is to increase the quantity and quality of STEAM learning opportunities in EXL programs through enhanced staff capacity, competence, and confidence. We will talk a little bit more about our guiding principles, but a lot of that work is expanding throughout these regions, and we're excited to see that.
Well, I turned my speaker off. It should also be noted that these were drafted before AI. So we actually had teams develop these missions and visions and these pillars of success that you see on the screen. I'm just going to read the topics: collaboration, environmental education, career pathways, coaching, training, professional development, and continuous quality improvement. Those are the cornerstones, the foundations of our work. When our hubs, the leads of our 17 hubs send in their work plans for us to review, they speak to these pillars. How are we going to operate? How are we going to serve these students? It looks very different from hub to hub to hub. As you can imagine, the needs of folks in the northwestern part of the state are very different from those students in Los Angeles. So they develop their own program plans, their own work plans for us to review and work with so we can support them better.
So again, the pillars lead into our values, and we see that in their work plans: really learner-centered, integrated approach, collaborative spirit, equity and access, super important. And we see that coming through bright and clear in their work plans. I'm not going to read all of this, but again, we promote STEAM identity to open doors for increased agency, interest, and a sense of belonging. We're going to show you actually some of the work that we see as well.
Next slide, Josh.
You see it?
Josh, your speaker on, or that me? So we work as a collaborative group. We have our own community of practice in which the 17 hub leads and Dr. Clark and myself work together to push forward our own learning. What do we as a collaborative group want to learn and focus on? And you saw some of those a minute ago. Environmental education is a big one currently. But in the individual hubs, they have different needs, as I mentioned. And on the screen now, you can see some of the flyers of some of the work that they do. Region 3, which is from the Sacramento County Office of Education, is headquartered, our Region 3 group. They created the STEAM Explorers. It's a great program for the students to get out there and just tinker and become interested in science, in the sciences, and experimenting with art and math and all the things that make a good STEAM leader. They're out there working with them. The STEAM Institute, which is Region 5, so our persons in the Monterey County Office of Education, and they put these both. They focus a lot on the professional development of their expanded learning practitioners with this institute. The resource fair that's open to everyone. This one's out of Region 10, which we have 2 hubs. Our newest hub, Riverside County Office of Education, and this one's from San Bernardino. They've been a long-term partner with us. They have a resource fair for any educator that wants to come up and share ideas and gather new information and help push our mission forward throughout the state. Next slide, please.
And on this slide, just a couple more, Region 6, San Joaquin area, reading with relevance, empowering educators workshops, STEAM through SEL. And then our Region 7, the region that I support, Fresno. They really do a lot with Fresno State, STEAM Hub workshops, science and art in the classroom, and also Region 7, Tulare County, STEAM Adventure Leagues. So all of these are exciting community of practices that they have going on in their regions.
Next slide, please. So throughout our work, both as a larger community of practice throughout the state and individual hubs, we've garnered some great partnerships throughout the years. Most recently, we've been working with several. These folks will come in to our statewide meetings and present to us, just like Rosalind and I are doing now, and offer a lot of free stuff for the staff out there. We've recently had EcoRise come and tell us all about their environmental education initiatives and offer great resources to our hub leads. The California Invention Convention, they've been in, they've done great hands-on programs with us as staff for professional development. And the STEM Next Opportunity Fund, who partners with us on many projects throughout the state. Next slide. And then so that's one set of partnerships. And then we kind of have strategic partnerships that we work with a lot behind the scenes. I've already mentioned the California STEM Network. The California is dedicated to Education Foundation, and the STEAM Symposium, which is now partnered with the Q Conference. So we work behind the scenes with these groups to plan strategically throughout the state. Often California After School Network is in the group, these meetings, and we work to see how we can push STEAM education forward in the state through those partnerships.
Next slide, please. All right, and just looking ahead, EXLD and the STEAM hubs will identify the skills needed to ensure capacity building, and this includes facilitation, trainer, and coaching skills, and knowledge of next generation science standards to create coherence within the school day. And again, we want to create pathways to enhance their knowledge and skills to ensure high quality STEAM initiatives are taking place in expanded learning programs throughout the state. Next slide, please.
So in the past, we've held monthly meetings these are just check-ins, just to talk about the work, share best practices and challenges, and how we can support each other as a group. And then 3 times a year, we meet with our, during the week that the statewide system of support for expanded learning meets. We meet that week also, usually the Monday prior, for a full day of learning experiences for ourselves. There's been talk of switching the meetings to bi-monthly. Everybody's super busy, as you know, getting folks together regularly is tough. But we have an all-day virtual meeting, February 9th, prior to our SSEO meeting, and then a Tuesday, May 26th, in-person meeting. We have a small group with leaders within the hubs that help Rosalind and I plan these all-day meetings so that it's useful for everyone. One thing I didn't mention that Rosalind asked about, we should mention, is the funding. When we brought those first 5 hubs into the department, they were funded at about right at $50,000 per hub. That is now up to $115,000 per hub. So we're just shy of $2 million total for the project. And I'm gonna put a plug out there, it's not enough. It doesn't really hire a person working in one of the county offices, but they are doing some great work with the resources that they have, which is why our partnerships are so important. They bring in all these free resources for our hubs to use.
I apologize. Can you repeat what it was and what it went to?
There were several steps in there. It was 50, and now it's 115,000 per hub.
And that's for staffing and all the
everything. Yeah, that's correct. We're proud it is where it is. But
Last slide is just our contact information. Josh, if you want to advance that. So those that are out there virtually, if they have any questions, they can feel free to reach out to us.
Questions?
Should have brought a cool activity to do. So we do.
Oh, so education. So I appreciate the update because, we hear about it. It's like, where is it at in the region? So I really appreciate you coming to do this. And I do agree that, it's on a shoestring budget and trying to support so many districts in larger regions. It's a difficult thing to do, but I think people are trying so hard. And I appreciate that you continually convene them for a community of learning because I know that really helps. So thank you.
And I want to say another thing, our pillars and our vision statements, those are additional work groups that we did within the hub. These people did this on their own time. So that speaks to them highly.
thank you for the update. We've had staff participate in the STEAM Institute. It's really great to have the resource. I was just curious because you mentioned AI at the beginning of the presentation. Are any of the regions or the 5 hubs tackling AI issues or digital citizenship?
It's funny you mentioned that. We gave them homework. And they're home because they're all over the place. These aren't necessarily STEM people. These are after school folks. We tasked them with use AI in your work at least once and then bring it back to our next meeting to discuss. Some of them use it every single day, all day. They're all over. Rosalind and I also participate in some CDE work groups, one of which is really focused on AI and its impact on the education system as a whole.
It would be interesting to take, I know it was your second slide where you had your goals and, education and put it in AI and see if they can do it better, or if you guys rocked the boat the first time.
We've discussed that. There's been some pushback.
Kind of look at what it says and say, yeah, no, that's not us. So
There's some pushback because, they worked on their own time to develop those. But I also know that a couple of folks sat in the room on our last meeting and did that thing. They didn't read it out loud, but we're proud of what we created.
awesome. Thank you very much for your time and thank you for being with us this morning. Michael?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more bit of context. 115K is a shoestring budget, but it does go to the same county office that is funded in each of the regions for the system of support. So it's part of a larger budget in a county office of education, and the STEAM hub work is part of a regional team that's part of the system of support for expanded learning. So it's supplemental to the system of support funding.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalind and Chris. Appreciate the updates on the STEAM hubs. And next we have a special presentation from the California After School Network, Jeff Davis, and I will be sharing his slides.
Jeff, you too violated the slide rules.
I'm taking the opportunity for data-driven continuous quality improvement, and so the data on slide requirements will be helpful for me as we continue forward. And apologies for the violation. Do y'all just need? I want to offer you the invitation to just stand up and stretch real quick if you want. Seems like you've been sitting for a little while, but looks like you don't need it. So I'm just going to be thankful for the opportunity.
Comfy chairs, Jeff. So
you're
we don't have the portable chairs. We got the lean back cushions.
So I want to just provide a little bit of the context for the presentation, right? It would be impossible for me to come to this body with the time that I have and give you a full representation of CAN's work. So each time I'm trying to give you little snapshots, right? Last time we talked about this concept of ecotone and the intersection of AB 2083 work. We talked about how that intersects with the Children Youth Behavioral Health Initiative, right, and transforming schools, and that being the sort of the foundation of our efforts in terms of the ecosystem plan for expanded learning. You've also had some opportunity to provide some information input, right, to that ecosystem plan in prior sessions. And I think that the last session as well, we got a pretty deep dive in terms of some policy stuff from our policy and outreach director. And at that point, I had told you, okay, so next time I'm going to tell you a little bit about our work that is specifically funded by CDE. So I'm going to do that in a moment and just in context. But I'm going to show you in the context of some things that were also funded outside of the CDE to move forward. And I'll kind of give you an example of how this can work. And I'll just sort of maybe open with this story. In 2010, the California After School Network launched this initiative called Jumpstarting STEM. And in fact, at that point, Kelly Faustino, who works now in the Department of Education's Expanded Learning Division, worked for CAN. And part of this was just a real experiment in terms of when we introduce high quality STEAM curriculum into programs, like how does that work, right? And we found that our staff do have the capacity to do high quality STEAM learning activities, right? But at the time, they were very intimidated by the subject matter and the content, right? But understanding that they can facilitate inquiry was really unlocking that experience. That transitioned into a 3-year initiative called the Power of Discovery STEM Squared, where 5 STEAM hubs were created. Is this starting to sound familiar, right? So that was a philanthropy funded endeavor that is now, right, fully mature and part of the system of support for expanded learning. So some ways where philanthropy funding, right, and can sort of lead into really great opportunities for the system itself. Yeah, I'll be sharing a little bit of our funding and what that looks like in terms of our contract deliverables. And then, right, like y'all can feel free to offer any sort of questions. You can go, yep, and you can go to the next one too. Josh, thank you. Today we'll get into the contents of our California Department of Education contract, but I want to give you a sort of what that looks like in terms of a holistic view. You'll see sort of like 3 lines over there that say Hellman, Heising, Simons, Broad. Those 3 funding sources are what we're now currently using to lead the ecosystem plan for expanded learning work. You can see that that is in addition to our CDE contract, moving that ecosystem planning work forward. The West Hills, Irvine, and Koya initiatives, these are workforce development and apprenticeship development initiatives. So part of a bigger exploration in terms of pathways into, within, and through the expanded learning workforce, right? Within the workforce to continually build capacity into higher levels of leadership, but also through into pathways into teaching and pathways into the behavioral health workforce. One that we're really strongly exploring includes the pathways through expanded learning into the role of certified wellness coach. And we're looking at a lot of integration of wellness coaches into expanded learning with some of our behavioral health work, which is funded through the SCOE capacity grants. So just to give you a little bit of a holistic sense of CAN and what we move, a big significant part of our work is our partnership with the California Department of Education. We can move into the next slide. And a little bit of context for that, right? That there's a certain amount that the Department of Education has had to partner with CAN over the past 6 years. That amount, right, has been the same amount. So, right, like we have a familiar situation in our partnership with the Department of Ed that I'm sure that you all can relate with. We have been flat funded for multiple contract cycles, right, as costs go up, right? So what that really means is that our personnel is taking up more and more of that contract, right? And we're having to make reductions in travel, reductions in investment in symposium, right? So like just wanting to provide the context that that flat funding has existed through multiple contract cycles. The last update that we did get was because there was some workforce partnership within the Foundation for California Community Colleges that they were no longer able to manage, and then that ended up rolling into our CAN contract as well. So that happened in 21, 22, into 22 and 23. And with the advent of ELOP, CAN's funding has also remained the same. So wanted to just provide that context. Next slide. And we all at CAN do work on our CDE contract, but we all have different levels of sort of investment that has been put in to that contract. And you might be wondering, like, why is Jeff like coming up into this public forum and like talking about the CAN's entire budget, right? And like how staff are funded. We're of the field and for the field, and we're a network, and we consider ourselves a steward of these public resources. We feel like it's really important that the system understands, right? And everyone really understands the public investment in CAN and how we're able to leverage that in other ways, right? As well as sort of braiding that with other opportunities for a bigger vision as well. We're all sort of part of the CDE contract, but we all sort of work in different ways and different percentages on that contract. Next slide, please. And sort of what does some of our other funding provide, right? Fee-for-service provides training above and beyond what we're able to do with our CDE contract. As I'd mentioned, Brodenheising-Simons, the ecosystem plan. We have a workforce and a school-based mental health portfolio. And then we have our national funding from the Mott Foundation, which really supports our participation in the 50 state after school network. And then we're able to use some of those resources to sponsor a strand at Boost every year. Next slide. And we can go sort of through that one into the next. Our contract is arranged very similarly into the format that was sort of being spoken about in terms of regional TA, right? Universal, targeted, and critical. And so I'll sort of give some overview of what that looks like, and we can go to the next slide. And we're going to get into all of that as well. So we can go to the next slide. We don't necessarily work totally independently, right? We are of the field and for the field. So in some of our efforts, we're co-creating, some of it we're collaborating. We have a big sort of body of our work that is information sharing, and then providing support where needed for existing efforts like within the regions. Continuing forward through the slide deck, when we look at our task one or our universal, we can go to the next one too, Josh. So this is things like participation in design team meetings of the SSEL, contractor meetings, SSEL convenings, supporting and convening facilitation and facilitating things like strategic implementation teams. You all may have heard of the research and evaluation subcommittee that was able to produce some data snacks last year that I'll sort of reference. We host things like virtual convenings, like the expanded learning academies that you've seen, and we disseminate data and information about the broader sort of system. So last year you saw that look like data snacks from each region, because as you know, we don't have a ton of data after ELOP had sort of come out. So we did a sort of local outreach effort to provide some highlight of the impact of ELOP in every region. I think Michael's used those in a number of his presentations with budget subcommittees and things of that nature. And then we support communications and things like shining a light on the work of expanded learning, like in the statewide Lights On After School celebrations. The slide 14 is essentially what I just said, so I'm going to just move through that and get into targeted. What we do, and so you can move to the next slide, thank you. We provide some support for training in each of the 16 service areas within the 11 regions of the system of support for expanded learning. We have at least one touch point that they can leverage us for in every region. And then we choose 3 to 4 regions that we work with each year to work with on a more ongoing basis throughout the year to provide more customized supports that meet their regional need. Continuing through targeted on the next slide. This is also targeted. We call it targeted communications when you do a one-off training. We don't see that as capacity building. We see that more as awareness building. So an example coming up is that we'll be with Michael at the California School Boards Association. During the summer, we were at multi-tiered systems of support, and we were promoting expanded learning in those systems, right? So getting out there, spreading the good news about expanded learning and the partnerships within the broader system. Targeted supports look also like targeted supports for a particular audience. So for site coordinators and convening the site coordinator network and the site coordinator symposium. We're also doing some targeted work with an employer community of practice where we're having that community of practice sort of weigh in on the competencies and capacities needed that were foundational to apprenticeship standards that we have submitted to the Division of Apprenticeship Services as well. Then also, we're also providing targeted support for things that are convened by others, such as the Bold Youth and the School of Leadership and Facilitation. For site coordinators, we provide some professional development as part of those processes as well. So that's a little bit of some of the targeted work. We're going to move through slide 17 because I think I already sort of referenced those pieces, as well as slide 18. And I just want to sort of provide a little bit of context in terms of the symposium, because CDE is able to provide sort of, well, we're able to budget a certain amount, and over our next 3 years, that amount goes lower and lower because of the situation that I had shared with you prior. And so I just want to be clear that the way that CDE supports the Site Coordinator Symposium, it looks more like a sponsorship, that they're able to provide some support to secure next year's venue, right? Or some of the logistics costs, but the rest of the cost of the event, which, right, costs go up significantly each year, it seems, we're able to recoup through partnerships, and also we leverage those partnerships as well to keep the price of symposium very low. So just wanting to provide full context in terms of what that support looks like. So that's why you see when you come to symposium, a lot of partnership engagement, because that is really the core of the funding is the partners that get involved. So just wanted to make that clear as well. And then we have a very small part of our budget that is for emerging sort of need, right? It's very hard to create a 3-year contract that is going to anticipate every future now moment that needs to be addressed, such as on the next slide, right? When it seemed like the sky was falling with the federal government and the 21st Century Community Learning Centers program, right? This was something that we could focus on continuing to build awareness within the field, right? That we could dedicate capacity and energy toward this emerging issue that, so I think it's really wise of the department, right? To create some of that flexibility within a contract with a partner like us so that we can address those emerging needs as they come up and sort of meet the moments as they occur. So that is what CAN does in partnership with the California Department of Education's Expanded Learning Division, and a little bit more context. And with that, I'm complete and can address any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Tiffany, you just came on screen. Do you have comments? Okay. Any comments from the members? Any questions? Go ahead, Diana.
Yeah, thank you for the budget recap and the focus of CAN. I think you all play a vital role in the whole after-school expanded learning ecosphere. And I'm curious though, how does the budget get set? Is that through this body here, or is that a CDE specific?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a contract monitor at the California Department of Ed, and what we do is we've sort of understand the resources that are available. And we co-create a scope of work that can be utilized in those three categories to access the available budget based on sort of what is the current need. And we're able to, in close partnership with the Department of Education's Expanded Learning Division and our contract monitor, that's usually how we create the contract elements. And anything that you like to add, Michael?
No, but I just for context, it's actually the same source of the funding for the contract with the California After School Network is the same source of the funding that we use to fund the county offices that are part of the system of support for expanded learning. And for your awareness, that comes out of an Ed Code identifies 1.5% of the funding for ACEs that was part of Prop 49. So that's 550 million, 1.5% goes to state operations or local assistance support as identified in Ed Code. At the federal level for 21st century, the federal level allows 5% of our federal allocation to go to local assistance support and 2% of our federal to go to state operations. When I say state operations, that's our budget for the division. So when we talk about the contract for the California After School Network, the contract for ASAP Connect, the grants to the county offices of education, the grants for the STEAM hubs, the contract with West Ed for the biannual report to the legislature, all of those things come out of that set aside. The 1.5% of ACEs only comes out of the Prop 49 designated 550 million. So there's additional significant amount of money that comes from the state budget to support ACEs that takes the rate from 750 to 1018. 1.5% does not come out of that. 100% of that money goes to the field.
And the only thing I would add to that is that CAN's current mix is about 50-50 ACEs and 21st century.
I have a question. Michael, you said ACES and federal. Is any ELOP money allocated or a percentage of ELOP?
There's a line item that takes $5 million out of ELOP to go to the county offices of education. So there's $5 million off the top of ELOP funding. It's not a percentage. It's just a whole number.
None of that goes to state operations?
There's another line item that was given to state operations that is part of the budget, but it doesn't come off the top of ELOP.
Other questions for Jeff?
I have a question. With your ecosystem advisory team, so you've met one time, how often do you plan to meet? Or do you know?
Yeah, and happy to do a fuller update on that work specifically too. But yeah, they've actually met twice now. And the elements of the ecosystem planning work, there's sort of a core team that's moving the work that includes Department of Education staff and CAN staff, right? That we're meeting weekly to sort of check in on how that work is going. Then there's a design team, which is about a 22-member body that is cross-sector, that is informing the core team, right, how to sort of move, right? And they informed things like, how would you recruit an ecosystem advisory team? What would be the content of the meetings for the ecosystem advisory team? So wanting to make clear that there's also a field-based multi-sector a design team that is advising how CAN moves, right? That's part of like sort of our philosophy of being of the field and for the field is that's sort of how we move is with the field. And then furthermore, there's like a 150-member ecosystem advisory team. So they met in person in October and then virtually in November. And what they're really been doing is generating a lot of data about what are the needs across sectors to support whole, healthy children, families, and communities, leveraging expanded learning as a platform. The other thing that they're going to be involved with, the design team members and the advisory team members, is that we're now implementing a data gathering process by which we can get closer to the field itself, right? So to make sure that there's multiple ages of children and youth that are part of processes, staff that are part of processes, community members and families that are part of processes. But as outsiders in the community, right, we're empowering those that are closest to the kids, the families, and the communities to do some data gathering that will also come in. We're also looking for funding to fund a more focused youth and family and community data-driven data gathering strategy. Yeah, if you know any funders that might be interested in it, we're certainly looking to fundraise to more fully fund the vision of what we're really hoping for. Full transparency, right? We got some funding and said some is good enough to start. And so let's get started with what we've got and let's continue to develop funds. So hopefully that addresses your question about the ecosystem.
And one more follow-up. How did it turn out? Are the rural people represented well on these committees?
That's a really good question. That's one of the things that actually the advisory team and the design team are looking at right now. That we're looking at the makeup not only from a position power sort of lens. What we realized is that we've got like 40% of our individuals are in higher leadership, like the CEO, that's right, like, and so that's another reason why we need to do more focused data gathering that's closer to service. And we're also looking at where our geographical gaps. While I don't have that committed to memory, I do believe that we are actually still looking for more representation in 1 and 2, if memory serves. We also did this really sort of amazing, like real-time mapping activity in our last ecosystem advisory team meeting. And it was really heartwarming to see like that as people put where they were coming from, we did have a pretty rich spread throughout the state. My hunch though is that we could always do better in terms of rural and frontier representation. And I think particularly frontier representation was mentioned as something that we would really want to target in our data gathering.
Thank you, Jeff. Any more questions? Thank you for your time and your presentation. We appreciate your participation.
Always an honor. Thank you.
So we have the opportunity as the committee to talk about emerging issues and opportunities that we're encountering at our site level, our district level, or our county level or regional level. And so we've opened it up. We've talked about the need for more training for special ed students. We've talked about the impact of the fires at our last meeting and what that meant to the closures of schools. We've talked a little bit about the immigration issues that are happening in California and the intense fear of some families not wanting to send their kids to school. I mean, just to the traditional day, let alone the after school period, and how do we deal with those issues? So I just wanted to open it up to see if anyone had any emerging issues or trends that they wanted to talk about.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. Thank you so much. I'm representing Rural Region 1, and when brought up at our last roundtable meeting, If there was anything that would, they'd like me to bring to the committee. More guidance for nutritional guidelines, especially for schools that are 20 students or less. Oftentimes they don't have as robust of a nutrition department. So any resources about the National School Lunch or California School Lunch programs that could be provided through after school, and especially for sites that might not have ACEs or 21st century would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other issues? All righty, we're gonna have a short meeting today. Yes, Jennifer, and then Diane.
I'm just, there was something that came up. Are there any considerations for program plans to be merged? This idea of comprehensive programs, we manage an ACEs program plan, an ELOP plan, then if you have 21st century, you got your 21st century narrative. And if we're really trying to encourage sites and LEAs to move towards this comprehensive idea, is there conversation about looking at the plans and consolidating? Or
There's a lot of conversation about how to really incentivize and train on one comprehensive program. And of course, you might recall from a previous meeting when we went through the amount of grant reductions for ACEs in 21st century and how significantly higher they were. It was discovered that in many cases, these districts were not running one comprehensive program, and they could have had credit for ACEs attendance with their ELOP, but they were running separate programs. We realized that the artifacts that we put out can influence how people see and perceive what's required. And the separate plans probably contribute to that siloed nature. But there's not a conversation about merging the plans at this point because they are very different methodology of funding. You know, the 21st century is a federal competitive grant that's for 5 years, and it needs to have its own plan. ACEs is a competitive grant that is at the school site level. And although an LEA does one plan and lists the different sites, you have to list the different sites for a competitive grant, and then the funding determination is based on a site level. And the ELOP is an apportionment that goes to many districts that don't have ACEs or 21st century. So it has to have a separate plan. So that's just being fully transparent as to why those are 3 separate plans. And we would entertain any advice, but we realize that maybe one of the biggest challenges out there for high quality is for districts that are not considering one comprehensive program.
Tia?
There's one emerging trend that we're seeing, and that's around insurance coverage. So more and more districts are asking the CBO to take on more of the liability. Sometimes even if our staff are not even in the room with the students, you know, like they're maybe in a pulled out program. So there's a lot, well, we're seeing more increased liability and insurance prices going up. And then on the other side, more risk on the employee side with increased lawsuits and people filing claims. So we're just seeing it on both sides. And we've had conversations with our LEAs, and I feel like I mean, some of you here could speak more, but they're under also pressure on the insurance side. So as I think Jeff mentioned, prices continue to increase. And then there's also this insurance piece that is emerging and doesn't tend to be trending. It's trending to get bigger and more of an issue across expanded learning community providers, as well as I would guess LEAs.
yeah, just from the district perspective, and anybody else can weigh in, there is an increase in litigations that districts are experiencing themselves. So usually that's advice from our council is we are sharing the load. Unfortunately, that's not a great way to put it, but we personally are experiencing increased litigations, SAM cases going back
decades and decades.
Julie?
I don't know that a solution is to come out of this body for this, but I do think this is a shared concern among CBOs and districts, and perhaps there's room for advocacy in other bodies to look at how we can create a more sustainable path, especially considering ELOP continues to scale toward its full implementation, right? So which will encounter additional risk for all of us.
Diana, did you have, Diane?
It wasn't about the insurance
That's all right.
thing, but that's a great thing to bring up. My question, and I don't know if this is the right area to put it, was just going back to the AB 49 immigration ICE on campus in non-public areas, and then the safety plan that's required. In our specific case, and what I'm hearing is that, you know, the after school that after school organizations are really sometimes not included in the safety plan, even just generally, but not necessarily added into, you know, those conversations and even having people available to lock up the gates and things like that. So related to non-public areas without a warrant, you know, there's cases where, you know, in rural areas, there's a fence and they have to enter through the playground area in order to get to any of the locations. So I'm just curious if there's maybe some support that we can get from the regional leads, or if there's any policy guidance that even is in that bill related to, you know, playgrounds and after school in particular.
I don't have an answer to that, but I would say that if you're going through a gate, you're on a school campus. So I think if you can ask your legal team for that interpretation, because that is not, I mean, the public cannot, is not, there's a sign that says, do not access, go to the office and check in. So I know playgrounds are still considered a school campus. But I also think the toolkit might help when you look through that too, the CDE toolkit, because it does talk a little bit about space.
Yeah, I think there is a general concern with the after school space and just access to the campus and the level of support from the administration and access to emergency phone numbers and things like that on who to
Yeah, and that's the big part, really. It's first being included in the conversation. And that's part of the reason I brought the bills forward, is that the schools are required to do that. So how do we ensure that we talk to our regional leads and others to make sure that the principals and the school site personnel are considering the full day, because they have a full day. They don't end at 2:30. There are other people still on that campus. And so how do we look to first be included in the conversation of the school safety plan, so that you have access to those emergency numbers, you know who's going to lock the gate, your staff knows what the safety plan is if immigration does come and what they can and can't say. But the real key is to getting as part of the conversation, to make sure that we now know the district is required to do that. So when we enter into conversations, even about contracting, how do we put it within our community-based organizations contract that they are going to participate in the school safety plan? So have it memorialized in the contract and other places to say, we want to be part of this. This is important for our staff too, to keep the kids safe, but to keep our staff safe.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if there's a possibility to get regional lead support with that conversation, or just be able to have some of that additional support for that.
And I could, Michael, in your next system of support meeting, maybe that could be something that you could broach with them about how they can support both the district side and the community-based side in better understanding what the school safety plan is and inclusion in the school safety plan, because that might be the platform when they all come together on their monthly meeting. Any other emerging issues or concerns, Chris?
I'm gonna liven it up with some opportunity. I just want to call, like, I think for all of us in our spirit of influence, that Jeff had talked about the California After School Symposium. And I think in this time in the year, we start really seeing staff retention goes down a little bit, morale goes down a little bit. And I think I just want to lift that the CAN Symposium, the Site Coordinator Symposium supported by CAN, it is a great avenue to bring young professionals in there, particularly site coordinators, and it is a huge morale boost. And for the price point, it really is a space to take care of those young people. And I think I remember there was a stat that if we could keep people in expanded learning for 3 years, the likelihood that they'll continue on in a career capacity in expanded learning is really just going to support our field. So I just want to just lift up that if we could bring anyone to symposium, great price point, and I think even with having Boost as a great conference, there are some programs out there that might not be able to afford Boost, but I think this is just a great avenue that we could support our site coordinators. And I know our organization, we're sending our whole team, and they look forward to it every year. So if you have any funds, I think that would really help with retention and just keeping that passion alive during these low fall months.
Thank you. You know, we in San Diego, we hosted our annual conference last Saturday in the absolute pouring rain on a school campus with no breezeways. And, you know, we had 600 attendees had RSVP'd, and we sat the day before trying to figure out how can we get them to eat lunch inside because it was going to be outside. How do we get them to eat breakfast inside when we don't have space, and all the other things. And we had 587 people show up, and in the pouring rain. And I do have to say, Southern California, do you think you could wear a raincoat? Maybe a hat? They were soaked. I was like, just a jacket. Could you have brought a jacket? I was handing out ponchos. But what's shocking is that they want to learn, and they're so eager to learn. And they stayed the whole day, and they don't get paid to be there. And, you know, it's just they want to do better. And so it really showed us the testament of these people who came, and we ended up with about, between trainers and volunteers, 640 people. Thank God we ordered 700 lunches. But, you know, it's just they want to learn. And so I think every opportunity we can find that we can get learning opportunities for our staff is they're eager. They want to do better. They want to learn more. And I really saw that in, you know, just these kids walking across on, and they get there at 7:30 on a Saturday morning. I said, who comes early to a conference after school? And so it was just so engaging, and they were so engaged so I think you're right. Any learning opportunity we can have and we can support. And, you know, the symposiums, we send people there all the time. We're constantly saying, look, there's another learning opportunity. So I do think it's incumbent upon us to recognize those and to encourage people. And people say, oh, I'm too busy. But it helps, and it re-energizes them, and it reignites them. And I mean, we've already gotten such feedback of, oh my God, I'm going to implement this, and I'm going to try this, and I saw this trainer and I didn't think about that. And so it's just a great opportunity to continue to expand the learning. By the way, I sent Michael and Josh something on the lights out after school. One of our staff, Sierra Robinson, had this idea. She went to our county board of supervisors, and they lit up our county administration for lights on after school in the blue and yellow colors. And it was so cool. And so many people texted and write and said, oh my God, check this out, like just highlighting it. And I thought, every county has a county admin. We got to get this across the state next year, where every county building is going to be lit up. And again, I mean, Sierra just had this idea, right? She's after school. She's like, hey, what about the bill? Sure. And the board all had a proclamation, and they did it. And it just looked beautiful right along the water in our harbor. And so what I encourage is ideas. Like, this is part of what the advisory is. If you have an idea, I want to copy it. I want to duplicate it. So if you're doing great things in your counties, this is also an opportunity to say, hey, we just tried this and it worked. And so we can learn from you guys. Because I think, you know, you sending staff to the symposium and seeing that they retain, that they stay, that's another message for us. So, you know, while we're talking about issues and trends, having those opportunities, I also think is a great idea. So thank you for sharing that.
Sandy, can I share something?
Of course, Tiffany.
At our last meeting, the conversation also came up around older youth. And so I wanted to kind of share what we learned. We convened folks a couple of times, and because remember, the question has always been that, you know, we know that we need more funding for older youth, and what does it actually look like? And then because we were hearing about all of the reductions, and so there's lots of, I think that there's some conversation around what could be leveraged through ELOP, what could be leveraged through some of these other fundings, especially since we have some funding coming back. Could there be policy conversations around shifting some of those, like the 21st century, to really focus on older youth. Like there was all this kind of dialogue. And so we convened some folks and got some things. And so to be clear, we did not solve any problem. But the things that came up is that we started getting these stories of different folks that are doing some really interesting things with different pots of funding. So I just wanted to share that we're going to work with the CAN, with our comms team, to kind of create almost like a storytelling template to go and gather some of those stories and resources around how other people are funding their work and their programs over time. Brad also, because y'all know Brad was in the call, was also looking at like, how do we actually tell the story and understand like how are people spending their funding now versus how they did in the past, and really being able to look at like, what's the impact of that work to a certain extent. And so we're going to also look at how do we do a larger survey for our funded programs so that we can actually get some information back. And then just to elevate what always comes up is, and how do we explicitly convene those folks and those young people to start really hearing directly from them and providing support, resources, all that kind of stuff. So just letting you know, it's kind of an ongoing dialogue, but that we did start like having these conversations, and people should start looking for just some information about how we can gather more of the stories of the people that are actually doing the work.
Thank you, Tiffany. It might be helpful, Jeff and Tiffany, for the next meeting, for that to be the focus of your presentation, is what you've learned to date of what those stories are for both the older youth, but also how people are using their funding. So maybe that could be something you can present as your presentation for the January meeting, if that's okay. And if you're ready for that, I don't know if the timing will be right, but that might be a great focus. For our next meeting, I have a couple things that we've already talked about. We obviously are going to have an update on the one-time supplemental. We're going to have an update on the ACES Universal. And we're also asking the department to come back for the request for unspent funding for the 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, jump to 22-23, and 23-24. Did I miss anything else that we've asked for an update from the department to come back to? Are there any more opportunities, concerns? If not, our next meeting is January 20th. I want to thank the over 200+ people who joined our webinar this morning. Oh, sorry, Diane, you have a comment?
I was just asking if we were going to get public comment.
Oh, you're right. I apologize. Even my notes say public comment. I skipped it. I do want to take an opportunity. Josh, do we have public comment?
We will see. I just want to read this just so everyone from the public is aware. The public comment, 2 minutes max, providing the public comment via Zoom. Please raise the hand feature in Zoom. You will be prompted to unmute and speak when called upon. Again, providing public comment via the phone. Please press *9 to raise, lower your hand. When called upon, press *6 to unmute your microphone. And the public comment phone number is below. 1-669-900-6833, along with the webinar ID of 861-3011-9506, passcode 0010974, And so I'm going to stop sharing so I can see if we have any public comments with anyone online. Give me a second. And let me see if there's anyone that has their hand up. So it looks like we have Laura D. Marie. I am going to allow you to talk. Go ahead, Laura.
Hi, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up? Okay, thank you. My name is Laura Demery. I serve as a coordinator in student services in Oak Grove School District in Region 5. I approach this issue leading with love, empowered by advocacy for our students and certificated educators. I want to bring to your attention a critical systemic conflict that prevents us from fully leveraging our ELOP funding for attendance recovery. Our district has been struggling with the shortage of qualified teachers, particularly in special education, to fulfill our federal mandate to provide free FAPE we are forced to expend significant general fund resources on costly third-party subcontracting. This unavoidable reliance on external contracts is challenging our ability to meet the statutory requirement of Ed Code, Section 41372, that requires 50 to 60% minimum expenditure on direct classroom teacher salaries. So, this is putting us like to leverage ELOP will put us over our percentage and threshold. So we've been hesitant to launch a full and robust attendance recovery program during intercession via ELOP. While we are aware that we can file for an exemption from Ed Code Section 41372 for our core instruction, we are requesting a proactive solution for attendance recovery under ELOP that would benefit all districts facing this challenge. I urge this committee to advocate for a specific regulatory clarification or waiver that creates flexibility under ELOP. An idea would be to allow LEAs to formally subcontract with a third-party vendor exclusively for administrative and payroll services while still utilizing our own LEA certificated teachers or other qualified teachers from an LEA near us if, we're in an area that doesn't have the ability to find qualified teachers that want to work after school or during intersessions. And I request the advisory committee recommends this to the CDE and review ELOP and AR regulations seeking a specific waiver that would permit us some type of flexibility for this so that we can leverage these funds and opportunities and generate ADA revenue. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing that. Next speaker.
Do we have anyone else on the screen that would like to make a public comment? Please raise your hand. Not seeing anyone at the moment, but I will let you know if a hand goes up.
We'll give it a minute, Josh, before we adjourn the meeting. Yes,
Are we going to keep the time at 10 o'clock for the next meeting?
yes. That is our new, 10 o'clock is our new time. I know many of you have already said that it worked so much better for you, so thank you for already acknowledging it's a much better choice, and if you guys are okay with it, we're going to keep that time. This side of the room says yes. Okay.
And I did want to highlight there were many questions that came through during the meeting. I did respond to most of them. Again, if there are still any questions that we didn't get to, feel free to email myself if you need some clarification on something, but I was able to manage that as well. Again, we had, like Sandy mentioned, well over 200 on this call, which is great. And still no hands up at this time, Sandy.
All right, so I am going to adjourn our meeting today. Thank you all for participating. Our next meeting is in person on January 20th here at CDE, but we will have a webinar availability so you can listen in and participate and ask questions. So thank you all for coming today. Thank you for being here. And our meeting's adjourned.
Recording is stopped.